Yeah, Lambo, different kind of situation in Cincinnati. Duke Tobin came out and he kind of talked about how Jamar Chase is obviously a priority as far as a contract goes, but then you think about, T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson. He said, look, hey, we can't be paying, top dollar at multiple positions around the league. The exact one was we can't have guys at the top of the payroll in every position, right? How do you think they go about assembling their team, and how do teams not fall into this kind of category like the Cowboys are in now and seemingly the Bengals are in, where you're paying three guys, 50% of your cap, but you kind of have to hold on to those guys because of how productive they are?
Yeah, well, you want to hold on to them. You just got to draft really well. I mean, the Rams got away with it. I know I listened to what Les said before I came on, and Les has done a great job of rebuilding that defensive front with the draft. And to me, if you're Duke Tobin, you've got to say, I've got to sign Hendrickson. He's my best pass rusher. He gives me a presence on defense. I love to sign T. Higgins, but unless I can get T for the right deal, I'm going to have to draft somebody. I'm going to have to find, again, it's the same thing whether you're in pro football or college football. They're replaceable parts and they're non-replaceable parts. And I think when you're talking about a great pass rusher like Hendrickson, they're hard to find. They just don't come walking down the street. You got to pay him. And you're going to have to pay him. You can never overpay for great, but what happens is when you start overpaying for good, you get in trouble. And I think that's something that Cincinnati can't do. Look, the offensive line has been a mess. Their defense hasn't been very good because of the way they practice and because of the way they don't really demand physicality. Look, the reality of it is teams that can't run the ball don't play good run defense. I mean, that's just a fact. Look, the Rams, one of the areas they have to improve on is their running game. They were 31st in the National Football League in yards per attempt. And guess what? Their defense was 26 in allowing yards per attempt. Those two things have to go together. And Cincy never puts those two together. I think it's one of the hardest defensive coordinator jobs in football because of the way they approach offensive football in Cincinnati. They never run it. They really don't manage the game correctly. They just want to score. And all of a sudden, they're in a scoring duel, and they end up losing. So Duke's got a challenge, but he's going to have to draft really well.
Okay, so let's stick with the Cincinnati Bengals and T. Higgins situation. You think he's going to be okay without Jamar Chase? Obviously, there was a lot of games where Jamar was not playing. Obviously, there was games without Joe Burrow playing and everything like that. You think he's going to be able to become a true number one somewhere if it's not in Cincinnati?
I think he can be. I think they're going to have to move him around. I think he is certainly a dynamic player. And I think if he goes to the right team where he is, let's call him a one, where he also has inside slot receiver or a tight end, then I think he becomes a player. Because remember, when you have Chase on the field, everybody's rolling the coverage or trying to double him some way. Now, they did a good job in Cincinnati this year, motioning him, keeping him away from double teams. But I think T's really talented, and I think T can go somewhere and be a really good player. You put T. Higgins on a team like the 49ers, my Lord, he could end up shining because they've got other players around him, and then he looks really good. But Brandon Ayuk would be even better with someone like T or Debo or someone there. So, yeah, I think and here's the problem that Duke has. Duke's not going to be able to pay what other teams are going to pay because people are going to overpay for T. Higgins in the sense that they need him.
Yeah, you got the Patriots over here saying, give them to me.
A lot of cap space.
Right.
You're talking about overpaying.
You got the Packers here saying, give them to me.
Yep.
And then people in Indianapolis, fans of the Colts, they're saying, he'd be great here, especially because we got Pittman already on one side, Alec on the other side. T would be great to open up the entire offense. I assume there's a lot of teams that are envisioning potential T. Higgins on their offense, making them better. And anytime that happens, all you need is two to really drive up a price. If there's more than that, you're talking, congrats to T.
Yeah.
Congrats. You've earned it, brother.
Welcome to New England, T.
And also, all the mic'd up segments I've seen from T, beloved by his teammates. Like, absolutely beloved by his teammates. And him not being the number one guy, I think there's a sense of humility that comes with that. I think there's a sense of work that comes with that. I think he is a prized possession of this particular free agency.
And before the season, there was that entire video he released of him from his car knowing, like, hey, this is probably my last year in Cincinnati, but still going out there and playing and not causing any problems.
And his mom came out and was like, he's going to do what's right. He's going to go do this entire thing. I mean, he is a guy that could potentially change your offensive franchise. We shall see how.
Yeah, and I think what people lose sight of, too, here, Pat, is since he's not a tax-free state, so, Duke's not going to be able to match the deal that someone else puts out there. And because he's not in it, whereas if he were in, say, Houston could get close because of the tax implications. Don't ever think that that's not a big factor in these deals, because it is. You go to Massachusetts, he's going to pay a hefty sum. The Patriots are going to have to pay way more than, say, the Raiders did if they sign him.
You're talking about Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that is what he's talking about. But
or any of those states, right? Any of those, you're just. I mean, that's just the cost of doing business. You're going to have to deal with it
without representation up there in Massachusetts. Now the place is known as Massachusetts.
Whoa. There's representation.
That's why the Tea Party was there, Connor. I mean, I don't want to disrupt you, Connor. I understand you want him there. I know.
No, Lombo, you get it. And that tea is still at the bottom of that harbor. Don't you forget it, brother. But, I mean, that's happened these last 2 years, though, with Ayuk and Calvin Ridley. That was a conversation, and they did overpay and overshoot everyone else because of tax adjustments.
And how did it work out?
We don't need to talk about that. Drake May is the
Okay,
quarterback.
all right. Okay. He's Pro Bowler.
That was before Drake May was a Pro Bowler.
He's a
now
Pro
we got a
Bowler.
Pro Bowl quarterback.